I was treated as a mistress and was imprisoned in a villa for 10 years. Until I passed away, he never promised me a wedding. When I opened my eyes again, I went back 10 years. To prevent the nightmare from happening again. The first thing I did after being reborn was to find his future nemesis. At that time, that man was still poor and destitute. I slapped my bank card on the table and said, "Marry me, and after we're married, I'll give you all my salary." The man gritted his teeth and said, "If you pay me $3,000 a month, then I agree." I proposed to Tig Kemp. At that moment, he casually held a lighter in his hand and asked, "What do you see in me?" I thought for a long time and blurted out, "Because you are handsome?" A mocking laughter made my face turn red, and I gathered up the courage to ask, "So, do you agree?" Tig didn't say anything. He stared at me intently, as if he had already seen through my little scheme. I looked back with a brave face, hoping he could see my sincerity. After a long time, he smiled. Casually, he replied, "A free wife delivered right to my door. Why wouldn't I agree?" And so, I got married. On the second day of my rebirth. Ding! webnovel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. As I looked at the marriage certificate in my hand, a deep sense of unreality lingered in my heart. In my past life, I had actually met Tig Kemp. It was during the 7th year I was locked up by Schuler Malloy. I escaped from the villa, penniless. On the street, I met Tig. At that time, he was already a well-known entrepreneur. Dressed impeccably, exuding an aura that kept strangers at bay. I begged him to save me. Tig arranged a place for me to live and provided me with a plane ticket to leave the city. But later on, Schuler Malloy found me again. Unwilling to recall that past, I lifted my head and asked Tig, "Where are we going next?" "To take you back your home," he said. I was taken aback, "But, didn't we get married?" "So what? So you don't plan to take me back to your home?" Tig Kemp lived in an undeveloped residential area. The house was not yet completed. The place was bustling with construction workers. I used to work as a bricklayer here and had some connections with the contractor. I've been living here temporarily before the neighborhood is handed over, without paying rent. Perhaps sensing my confusion, Tig explained proactively. The house had a raw industrial style. Inside, there was nothing but a military bed. There wasn't even a flush toilet in the bathroom, just a faucet for showering. Tig looked at me and said, "Regretting it now? You can still run away. No regrets." I placed my luggage next to me. "We'll sleep here together tonight. The bed is a bit small. Isn't it?" Tig squinted and replied, "It's enough." At night, I lay on Tig's military bed. He casually laid 2 newspapers on the floor and lay down. There were no curtains in the room, and I could see the bright moonlight through the glass. "Tig, are you asleep?" "Yes." I was worried that he would catch a cold sleeping on the floor, so I moved to one side of the bed. "Do you want to come up and sleep together?" The bed was small, but we could squeeze in. After a few seconds, Tig finally replied, "If I get on the bed, you won't be able to sleep." I tightened my grip on the blanket in my hand. "I don't mind." As soon as I finished speaking, Tig, as if granted permission, pounced on me. Caught off guard, I instinctively turned my head away. As soon as the weight on me eased, I saw a hint of mockery on Tig's face through the moonlight. "Don't promise things you can't do. I'm an honest person and take things seriously." With that, he was about to lie back on the newspapers. Realizing his intention, I grabbed hold of the hem of his clothes. My fingers touched his body through the gap in his clothes. Tig shivered all over, looking at me with a hint of ambiguity in his eyes. I bit my lip. "I can do it." Afraid that he would refuse, I fearlessly scratched his body a couple of times through his clothes. Tig's gaze deepened. "Now, you can't regret it." Unlike Schuler Malloy, who deliberately exercised in the gym to build his muscles, Tig's body had a natural wheatish complexion from years of manual labor. His abs were solid, and his whole body exuded strength. In the end, I couldn't bear it anymore and cried until I convulsed before he stopped. He rudely wiped away my tears with a kiss and said, "Such a delicate person." His tone carried a hint of dissatisfaction. I was already in a lot of pain, and he didn't comfort me. On top of that, he scolded me for no reason. I was also unhappy, so I turned to the side and didn't want to look at him. He didn't pay any attention to me either. He got off the bed and I didn't know where he went. Holding the blanket, I felt more and more aggrieved. In my past life, I had been kept by Schuler Malloy like a mistress for 10 years. It wasn't until death that I finally got free. I thought it was a gift from heaven, giving me a chance to start over. But I didn't expect Tig to change like a different person. As I cried, suddenly a warm towel covered my face. I didn't know when Tig came back, but he had a basin and a warm towel in his hand. "Are you crying?" I didn't admit it, no. Tig wiped my face haphazardly and then turned his head to wring out the towel. "What are you doing? There's no hot water in the house, so you can't take a shower. I'll make you feel better by wiping you." Indeed, my body felt sticky. I couldn't bother to be angry anymore, and blushing, I tried to snatch the towel. "I can do it myself. Just stay still." Tig ignored my actions and directly lifted the blanket, placing the warm towel on my face. After a moment, I heard Tig's voice. "Don't be mad. Next time, I'll be more gentle, all right?" His voice carried a hint of awkwardness. The warmth on my face gradually increased, and I curled the corners of my mouth upward. I covered my face with the blanket. The next day when I woke up, Tig was already dressed neatly. There were 2 steamed buns on the low table. I didn't know when the man went to buy them. "The hot water is ready. After you finish washing up, I'll take you to work." "No need, I can go by myself." Tig glanced at me and said, "There are many workers here. It's not safe for a young woman like you to go alone." Then he added, "Call me when you finish work in the evening, I'll come pick you up." I washed up slowly and only then noticed the bank card on the table. It was the one I gave him yesterday when I proposed to Tig. "Don't forget the card." Tig glanced at it and said, "You keep it, I wouldn't use a woman's money." Liar. He's clearly so poor. Tig didn't take it, and I didn't argue. In my heart, I thought maybe we could use the money in the card to buy a house first. If Tig didn't agree, at least we could get a new bed. Although it's not a golden house like in the previous life, looking at Tig, I felt inexplicably at ease. This good mood lasted until I went to work. Just as I entered the office, Cassidy came over mysteriously and said, "Josie, I have good news for you." She lowered her voice. "My cousin has taken a liking to you." She pulled me aside mysteriously. "My cousin is not an ordinary person. He's incredibly handsome, has a good personality, and graduated from Cambridge University. His father is even a billionaire. Many rich girls have tried to get close to him, but yesterday he suddenly told me that he wants me to set up a blind date for you." Cassidy's eyes sparkled. "Josie, your lucky day has come. Graduated from Cambridge. Father is a billionaire." A name suddenly appeared in my mind. My face turned pale. I controlled my expression and politely declined in a calm tone. "I may need to apologize to your cousin. I don't have the fortune to meet him. I'm already married." Cassidy didn't believe me. "We've been colleagues for a year, and you don't even have a boyfriend. How did you suddenly get married?" "It's true, we got our marriage certificate, but we haven't had the wedding yet. I'll send you the invitation when the time comes." I smiled and said, "I have 2 classes to teach right away, so I'll go to the classroom first." After saying that, I quickly left. It wasn't until I walked out the door that I felt as if all the strength had left my body. Schuler Malloy. He wasn't supposed to appear at this time in the previous life. Why did he appear so much earlier? And how did he know that Cassidy and I were teaching at the same elementary school? My hands and feet turned cold. I comforted myself. In this life, I'm already married. I already have Tig. I definitely won't make the same mistake again. Schuler Malloy's early appearance had an impact on my mood. I was absent-minded the whole day. My right eyelid kept twitching. I felt like something was about to happen. Sure enough, as soon as I left the school gate after work, I saw a black car parked at the entrance. A man got out of the car holding a bouquet of roses when he saw me. "Miss Anaya." He called out to me and introduced himself with a smile. "I apologize for the intrusion. I'm Schuler Malloy, Cassidy's cousin." There were students leaving school and parents picking up their children outside. Schuler's bouquet of roses was eye-catching and ostentatious. Someone recognized me and started applauding, encouraging me to accept him. My face turned pale. "What do you want?" "Don't be nervous. I just want to get to know you," Schuler Malloy said, his lips curling. "I happened to see you when I was waiting for Cassidy. I had a good impression of you, so today, I came uninvited. Don't feel pressured, just consider it making a friend. Although Schuler was pretending calm, I still felt the madness in his eyes. Feeling helpless, I suddenly saw Tig standing in the corner. He was leaning against an old motorcycle, looking at me sideways. He seemed indifferent, like a drowning person finally seeing a piece of driftwood. I rushed over to him. The familiar smell of engine oil from Tig brought me back to my senses. I turned to Schuler and said, "I've explained to Cassidy before, I'm married." Schuler obviously didn't expect me to be married. The smile on his face disappeared. His gaze shifted to Tig, and a flash of hatred passed through his eyes. Although he quickly concealed it, I keenly caught it. But why would there be hatred? He had only just met Tig for the first time. Schuler quickly masked his expression and quickly adjusted his emotions. It was presumptuous of me. I didn't know Miss Anaya's personal situation in advance. Since I've bought the flowers, I won't take them back. I might as well wish you a happy marriage, he said, extending the flowers towards me. Flowers for a beautiful lady. I don't think your husband would mind, right? Before I could speak, Tig suddenly laughed. Who says I don't mind? He looked at Schuler. I'm a petty person. I can't stand seeing such a beautiful wife of mine receiving gifts from others. After speaking, Tig directly put a pink helmet on my head. Put it on. Looking at the brand new helmet, my mood inexplicably improved. I couldn't help but ask, "Did you buy it specifically for me?" Picked it up from the garbage dump. I pouted. "Can you pick a blue one next time?" I like blue. Tig raised an eyebrow and pretended to take the helmet back. I hurriedly put it on and tapped my head twice with my finger. Does it look good? There was a hint of amusement in Tig's eyes as he lifted the visor on the front of the helmet. Then he said, "You look like a fool." When I turned around, Schuler Malloy had already left. After today's incident, everyone knew that my husband worked at a car repair shop. During break time, I overheard a few teachers discussing together. She may be pretty, but what's the point? She still ended up with a husband like that. You didn't see that his motorcycle is so old and sounds like a tractor. Then everyone laughed. When they saw me coming in, someone deliberately asked, "Josie, where does your husband work on cars?" My husband just bought a Mercedes and wants to have it serviced by him, take care of his business. Sure, I'll send you the address later. Cassidy couldn't stand it anymore and dragged me out of the office. Are you stupid? They're bullying you, and you're not saying anything back? You're attractive and have a decent job. Why did you end up with? Cassidy paused and then continued, "I'll be frank, you just graduated and got deceived. You always thought love could outweigh material things, but you'll regret it later. Seriously. Consider my cousin. He says he doesn't mind your marriage. Cassidy, your bag looks nice." I interrupted Cassidy and looked at the Hermes bag on her desk. "Is it new?" Cassidy paused, her face turning red. Yes. Cassidy was a working-class person, and it was obvious who gave her the bag and why. I didn't expose her. My husband and I are doing well. Our life is our own business. Don't badmouth him in the future. I don't want to hear it. After work that day, Tig surprisingly didn't ride his motorcycle. "Where's your motorcycle?" "I sold it." Tig didn't explain any further, just smirked and said, "Let's go." He pulled me forward, but the direction was slightly different from the usual. I didn't know what Tig was up to, but after walking for about a few hundred meters, we stopped at a residential area near my school. "Go up to the 3rd floor and take a look." I had a faint guess in my heart, but I couldn't believe it. I slowly walked to the 3rd floor and found the door of the middle unit wide open. I pushed the door and entered, finding a small 2-bedroom apartment. The apartment wasn't big, but it was exceptionally cozy and well decorated. The curtains were the color of the sky, gently swaying in the breeze. The setting sun poured in through the window, making the whole room golden. He remembered that I liked the color blue. I couldn't describe that feeling. I've lived in luxurious villas and run-down apartments in my 2 lifetimes, but only at this moment, my heart seemed to be filled with happiness. "You sold the motorcycle and rented this apartment?" The area around the school was considered a good location, and although the apartment was old, the price was not low. Tig's money probably wasn't enough to pay the 3 months' rent in advance. Tig didn't mention the motorcycle and simply said, "This place is closer to your school. convenient for you to commute. Besides, the other place doesn't have hot water, and you can't stand that. Before he ended the words, I hugged Tig's waist. Tig was caught off guard by my sudden embrace. After a moment of confusion, he wrapped his arms around my back from behind. All right, it's not time for you to cry yet. Cry to me later tonight, okay? Such a tease. Until the evening, Tig successfully made me cry in bed. He held me and kissed the corner of my mouth, with a satisfied look on his face. My wife is right, a double bed is definitely more exciting than a single bed. We should have moved in sooner. When did I ever say that? I endured and endured, not kicking this person off the bed. The next day, on the weekend, Tig and I agreed to go to the unfinished apartment to retrieve some things. But in the afternoon, Tig still hadn't come home. I might not have time today. Something came up at the factory. Halfway through, Tig called me. Without thinking much, I replied, then I'll go by myself. In fact, there weren't many things, just a suitcase. Tig's place was messy, and I didn't hear what he said before hanging up the phone. Before, Tig didn't allow me to go there alone. Mainly because there were too many workers, and Tig always felt it wasn't safe. But now, it was broad daylight, and it shouldn't be a big deal for me to go and pick up something. Little did I know, as soon as I entered the room, 3 or 4 workers followed me in. You live here alone? My heart skipped a beat. Who are you? Get out. We're working here. Why should we leave? The man in the lead laughed. We've seen you fooling around with a man here for a long time. How about playing with me, too? The room was too spacious, and I couldn't even find a tool to protect myself. I gritted my teeth and turned to run outside. The man reacted quickly, grabbing my hair and throwing me to the ground. Little girl, you have a good figure. I've been craving you for a long time, and today is the day, he said as he pressed down on me. I struggled desperately, screaming like crazy. Just as his hand was about to touch my clothes, the door suddenly burst open. Then the person on top of me was knocked to the ground. The other 2 workers wanted to help, too. I'm the developer of this place. Are you sure you want to fight with me? The 3 of them looked at each other, as if evaluating the truth of that statement. After a moment, they cursed and ran away. Schuler Malloy took off his suit jacket and covered me with it. He said to his assistant standing nearby, "Go find them and deal with it as you see fit." The assistant nodded and left. Only then did Schuler lower his head and ask, "Do you still remember me?" My hand holding the clothes had turned purple. "I don't remember." I returned the clothes to him and picked up my suitcase. "Thank you for your help today." I walked past him and Schuler suddenly grabbed my wrist. "You seem to be afraid of me. We're not familiar. Why should I be afraid of you?" "True." Schuler let go of me. "What about you? How did you end up here?" "If I remember correctly, this building is not yet completed." "That's none of your business." "Indeed, but I developed this land." Schuler stared at me. "Illegal residents. Should I sue Tig Kemp on this basis?" "What do you want?" "I want you." Schuler didn't hide his intentions at all. "Josiah, I've told you from the beginning, I want you. I've also said that I'm married." "That's not my concern." I pressed my lips tightly, and he bent down to meet my gaze. "That man can't give you the life you want. You, this pearl, shouldn't be covered in dust by him. Do you want to let your man go to jail, or do you want to live a superior life with me? It's your choice." I clenched the handle of the suitcase and turned to leave. This time, Schuler didn't stop me. It wasn't until I left the entrance of the residential area that I realized my whole body was trembling uncontrollably. 3 workers followed me in, and Schuler Malloy just happened to be my knight in shining armor. I simply couldn't believe that all of this was just a coincidence. Starting a new life. And Schuler was still the same. He would do anything to get what he wanted. I tried calling Tig several times, but there was no answer. I waited until it started getting dark before I felt that something was wrong. Since we got married, Tig had never come home this late before. I went straight to the factory where he worked. It was a mess inside. I stopped a janitor who was cleaning and asked, "Do you know where Tig Kemp is?" "Tig? He went to the hospital." I was stunned. Why would he go to the hospital out of the blue? The janitor shook his head and said, "Poor guy, he ran into some unreasonable gangsters." After I got the address, I rushed to the hospital and found Tig being pushed out of the consultation room. There were 2 bloodstains on his face, and his right arm was in a cast. His clothes were covered in mud and had red stains all over. I couldn't hold back my tears. "Tig, why are you here?" He walked over and wiped my face with his other hand. "It's all right, I'm not dead. Why are you crying?" It was already this late, and he was still saying such things. I was a little annoyed and was about to say something when I suddenly heard a voice. "Wow, Tig, your wife is so beautiful, like a fairy." Then he muttered, "No wonder you don't hang out with us at night anymore." If I had such a beautiful wife, I wouldn't go out either. Only then did I notice that there was a young man standing behind Tig. He was young, but his gaze was clear and not repulsive. He straightforwardly complimented me, which made me feel a little embarrassed, but Tig smiled happily. "Stay away from my wife." I asked the doctor, and apart from a minor fracture in his right hand, Tig only had some external injuries, which relieved me. "How did you get hurt like this?" Before Tig could speak, the young man interrupted. "We ran into an unreasonable guy today. There was nothing wrong with the car, but he insisted that Tig had damaged it and demanded compensation from us. Of course, we refused, so he brought a group of people to smash our shop." "Why didn't you call the police?" "What's the use? That guy clearly has some power and influence." Suddenly, I remembered something. What kind of car was it? "A black Hummer." The young man was still complaining. "Now that we've offended such a big shot, what are we going to do in the future? Tig, do you think the boss will hold us responsible for this?" I didn't pay attention to what they said afterwards. I just felt everything turning dark in front of me. It was Schuler Malloy again. Suddenly, a hand grabbed my cheek. I winced in pain and met Tig's teasing gaze. I looked at his seemingly careless expression and felt a bit strange. "Aren't you worried at all?" "Worried about what?" "About what's going to happen next." Tig chuckled. "What's the big deal? I can just quit. What else can they do to me?" Then he smirked. "Besides, I still have my wife to support me. She pays me $3,000 every month, right?" He mentioned the time when I proposed to him. My face turned red again. I softly nodded. "All my money is for you." Tig playfully flicked my forehead and said, "Silly." Tig got fired. I overheard a phone call between him and the owner of the auto repair shop. "I'm really sorry about this, but the other party is too powerful, and there's nothing I can do." Tig stared out the window, his expression unreadable. After the call ended, he called out to me, "Josie." I thought he was going to tell me about being fired. As I was thinking about how to comfort him, he said, "I feel dirty, can you help me take a shower?" I looked up, but there was no sign of disappointment on Tig's face. "Help him take a shower." I blushed deeply and said, "Why do you always think about these things?" "What things?" Tig raised an eyebrow. "My right hand is in a cast and can't get wet. I just need you to help me with the shower." Then he leaned close to my ear and said, "Is there something else on your mind? Say it, even if I have to give up this arm, I'll do anything to satisfy you." I became annoyed and forgot about his job loss. I walked angrily towards the bathroom. I could still hear his joyful laughter from behind. However, while showering, Tig noticed the marks on my neck from earlier in the day. He lightly pinched my neck and frowned. "What happened here?" Only then did I notice the bloodstains and obvious signs of strangulation on my neck. They were probably caused when I struggled earlier in the day. I hurriedly covered them with my hair and said, "It was an accident." Tig sneered, "So you accidentally strangled yourself and scratched yourself in the process?" I couldn't lie, so I told him the truth. I went to the unfinished house during the day to get something, and someone followed me. Seeing Tig's instantly darkened face, I quickly explained, but nothing happened to me. "Someone saved me." Tig remained silent. We stood there in silence. In the cramped bathroom, the misty water vapor dissipated, leaving a chilling sensation on our bodies. I shivered. Only then did Tig react and wrapped me in a towel. I tugged at his hand and asked, "Are you angry? I shouldn't have let you go alone." His eyes were filled with unmistakable concern and regret. But it was clearly my fault. I couldn't hold back anymore and blurted out everything I knew. It was all Schuler Malloy's doing. He's the one who sent me roses at school before. The Hummer is his, and he deliberately smashed the shop to cause trouble for you. He also hired the workers and waited there to save me. He even knows where we live and threatened to sue you. I don't know why he's so evil and won't leave me alone. I'm sorry, it's all my fault. If it weren't for me, I couldn't continue speaking and started crying uncontrollably. I wanted to cry out all the grievances of my life. I didn't understand. I never provoked Schuler Malloy. Why wouldn't he leave me alone? Seeing me cry so intensely, Tig wiped my tears with the towel. Why do you always cry so easily? Aren't you mad at me? What's there to be mad about? Mad that you're good-looking and too charming, and that you attract the attention of thieves when you walk down the street? My emotions from earlier were all dispelled by Tig's words, and I sniffled. Tig, do you regret it? Regret what? Regret marrying me. Tig didn't answer but instead asked, do you regret it? Marrying a mechanic who has nothing and just lost his job. I vigorously shook my head. My wife doesn't regret it, so why would I? Even if the son of a billionaire wanted you, you chose me and were willing to invest in me. What do I have to complain about? His words made me want to cry again. In fact, I did start crying again. I nestled in Tig's embrace and said, I love you. Tig didn't expect me to confess and stiffened all over. He held me tightly against his chest, his voice hoarse as he murmured, and said, your man is right here. After that day, Tig became very busy. Even though he lost his job, he still left early and came home late every day. I didn't know what he was doing, but he was probably scared by Schuler's actions. Even though we moved next to the school, he still insisted on picking me up from work every day. When you're at school, stay with the other teachers and don't wander around, okay? I couldn't help but smile. I'm not a kindergarten kid. I'm not that fragile. Tig smirked, but you are a little kid. However, recently Tig had noticeably more social engagements. Sometimes he couldn't pick me up from work in time, so he asked his former colleagues for help. I felt embarrassed and said to the boy, it's just a short distance, I can walk by myself. Don't bother next time. That won't do, the boy grinned. I will complete the tasks given by Kemp, no matter what. Besides, a fairy like you needs to be protected. Trying to persuade the boy didn't work, so I turned my head and looked for Tig. If you keep doing this, be careful that people start gossiping and calling you a slave to your wife. But Tig was not ashamed at all and rolled his eyes. I love spoiling my wife. Do they have a say in it? I couldn't help but laugh and cry at the same time. On that day at work, Cassidy mysteriously pulled me to a corner and opened her phone. Is this your husband? I looked at it, and there was a video of Tig drinking with a woman. The woman was beautiful. In addition to Tig, there were 4 or 5 men surrounding that woman. The room was dim, so I couldn't see Tig's expression clearly, but it was definitely him. My friend took this at a bar, and I thought the guy looked like him. Cassidy looked at me. I heard he got fired from the car repair shop, and now he's just a small-time thug. Look, he has stooped so low as to sell himself and accompany a woman for drinks. Is this what you call true love? Be careful and don't catch any diseases with such a person. Are you done talking? My face turned cold. Cassidy, you keep badmouthing my husband, following us, taking photos, and trying to instigate a divorce. What exactly are you planning? You know it yourself. Whatever benefits Schuler Malloy gave you, I may not say it, but I understand. From now on, besides work-related matters, please don't find me alone anymore. After saying that, I walked into the office. After a while, Cassidy walked in. Her eyes were red. I faintly heard a few colleagues comforting her, probably saying that I didn't know what was good for me. That evening, Tig came home very late. Just got back? Yeah. I sniffed. How much did you drink? Tig playfully rubbed my face. Are you disgusted with me? I laughed and dodged, and Tig pulled me into his arms, letting out a long sigh. You've been working hard during this time. I hugged Tig back and shook my head. The next morning, I smelled a fragrance on Tig's shirt. There was a faint lipstick mark on the cuff of his shirt. I thought of the photo Cassidy showed me, and my heart felt sour. If only Tig could just be a car mechanic. Days passed like this, but I didn't expect that one day I would actually catch Tig with another woman. That day, I went out shopping with a few colleagues. We passed by an expensive restaurant. Suddenly, a colleague tugged at my bag and asked uncertainly, Josie, doesn't that person look a bit like your husband? I looked over, and the man was sitting by the window. Opposite him was a woman with exquisite makeup. My heart sank. It wasn't just a resemblance, it was him. My expression turned unpleasant, and my colleague probably noticed my abnormality and awkwardly chuckled. It should be business related, their interaction seems normal. I replied with and didn't want to look anymore. Let's go. I had just turned around when my colleague suddenly screamed and grabbed me. Josie, your husband. My heart tightened, and I heard her say, he beat up that woman. I quickly turned back and saw the originally peaceful table being kicked over by Tig. He looked down at the pale-faced woman with a mocking smile. I hurriedly ran over and heard Tig say, with your looks, you still have thoughts about me? Who do you think you are? Then he walked away with a commanding presence and made eye contact with me. The man who had been proud and arrogant like a little lion didn't expect me to appear, and he instantly lost his confidence. Josie? Then he frowned and explained, I don't hit women. It was just an accident. I have long legs, and I accidentally kicked the table over. I chuckled and said, I didn't blame you. Tig breathed a sigh of relief, raised the corner of his mouth, and took my hand. Shall we go home? When we got home, I found out that the person Tig had been dealing with all this time was Schuler's sister. The sales job I did was just a cover. In fact, I was trying to get in touch with his sister. Tig sneered, Teresa Malloy is quite open-minded and especially likes young men. She has done a lot of crazy things in private. During this time, I got close to her, established connections on that side, obtained a lot of illegal information, and sold it all to their rival company. This should make the news tomorrow. Although it's not a big deal, it will still cause chaos for the Malloy family for a while. They will be busy cleaning up the mess, so Schuler Malloy probably won't have time to bother you. You did all this just to make Schuler Malloy not care about me? In a few days, I might go to S-City. If I don't block Schuler Malloy, I won't feel at ease with you. When I heard that Tig was leaving, I immediately felt a bit reluctant. Why are you suddenly going out? How long will you be gone? Probably a couple of weeks. If this trip goes smoothly, I might have to be on the road frequently in the future. So, actually, Tig had been truly busy. He was running a transportation company. When I was repairing cars, I learned some tricks and started with a few trucks to run some deliveries. In the beginning, I didn't know anything and had to personally handle everything. He rubbed my head vigorously, wait for me to come back. On the day Tig left, I still stuffed my bank card into his pocket. Inside was the $70,000 I had saved over the years. It was all my savings. I left a note, you need to have money when you're outside. The password is our birthday. Come back safely. After Tig went on a business trip, Teresa Malloy's scandal indeed made headlines. This scandal was deliberately manipulated by someone and even involved other matters, causing a sensation and sparking lively discussions among the public. Schuler Malloy was overwhelmed and didn't show up again. My days became easier. At the end of the semester, the school started the selection for outstanding teachers. Each school only had one spot. Based on the preliminary research, the school had originally planned to nominate me. But on the day of the announcement, the name on the list changed to Cassidy. The school leaders were also in a difficult position. They called me for a conversation and said that Cassidy was recommended by higher-ups. We all understood the underlying reasons. As I walked out of the principal's office, I saw Cassidy. Since the photo incident, our interactions had become rare. Cassidy let out a light hum beside me and walked past without saying anything. Originally, this matter didn't cause any ripples in my heart. But when I had a video call with Tig at night, I couldn't help but feel a bit aggrieved. I pouted, trying to control myself from crying. Tig immediately noticed something was wrong and asked, "What's the matter?" I didn't want him to worry, so I said, "I just watched a movie and it made me feel uneasy." Tig chuckled, silly. After hanging up the phone, I slapped my own face hard, mocking myself for regressing more and more. In my previous life, my father was wrongfully imprisoned, and my mother fell seriously ill, but I never shed a tear. Yet now, because of such a trivial matter, I actually cried in front of Tig. In the early hours of the morning, while I was still half asleep, I suddenly heard the sound of the door lock. My heart tightened. I worried that it was Schuler Malloy causing trouble, so I picked up a baseball bat for self-defense and stood behind the door, waiting. The next moment, the door opened. I swung the baseball bat. The other person seemed prepared and caught it with one hand, then I heard a familiar teasing voice. So, you've been keeping a wild man inside and planning to murder your husband? I was pleasantly surprised and said, Tig, why are you back? My wife is in a bad mood, so the husband has to be at home with her. How did you know I was in a bad mood? I'm not clueless. Can your acting really fool me? The tears that I had barely held back earlier started to fall again. Tig sighed, you crybaby. Tig stayed for one night and took the high-speed train early the next day. I couldn't bear to see him go. He kissed my forehead. The company has already been registered recently. Come find me during the summer break. I nodded vigorously and started counting the days on my fingers. Another half a month passed. The school went on vacation. I eagerly bought a plane ticket to S-City. It wasn't until Tig drove me to his company that I realized it was different from what I had imagined. I thought Tig was only involved in ordinary transportation, maybe managing a few trucks for cargo delivery. But when I actually saw it, I found out that it was actually a logistics company that integrated e-commerce, transportation, and express delivery services. The company's scale wasn't large, but it had already taken on many businesses. I was so shocked that I couldn't say a word. How did you come up with this? I remembered that in my previous life, Tig never came to S-City. He was just an ordinary car mechanic and later got recruited by a foreign-owned company during which he switched jobs to a multinational automotive group. Then he formed his own research and development team, specializing in chip development. He made his first fortune. Now Tig's destiny had changed because of me. He left the car repair shop ahead of time and didn't even have a chance to meet that boss. He even came to S-City and started a logistics company. S-City's e-commerce industry has been developing rapidly in recent years, and logistics is a gap that needs to be filled. Coincidentally, I know a thing or two about cars, so I invested the money I earned from the cars into it, just to give it a try. What Tig didn't mention was that even though we lived in B-City, the current leading enterprise was still the Malloy Group led by the Malloy family. In that city, Tig would face great resistance if he wanted to start a business. For me, he had to go elsewhere. On one hand, I felt sorry for him, but on the other hand, I couldn't help but admire his foresight. Because I believed that the logistics company founded by Tig would become an indispensable presence in the e-commerce field of S-City. Tig had already rented an apartment in advance. It was a small 2-bedroom unit. It was about the same size as our house in City B, but 3 times more expensive. The cost of living here is high, and I've invested all my money into the company, Tig said, with a hint of rare shyness. I used the money in your account. It was always yours, I replied. Tig kissed the corner of my mouth and said, from now on, my salary will be all yours. Since the company had been registered, Tig couldn't keep shuttling between the 2 cities for a long time. I never had much affection for City B. So, after discussing with Tig, I decided to quit my job and develop myself in City S. I stayed until the start of the school year and then went back to the university to process my resignation. By that time, Tig's logistics company had begun to take shape, and as a pioneer entrepreneur, Tig was invited to several interviews. A colleague who had previously mentioned buying a Mercedes and having Tig take care of it approached me and greeted me. A few days ago, we saw your husband on TV. I always said that Tig is a promising person. You see, beauty recognizes beauty. Now he's successful. Another colleague chimed in. We have to admit that Josie has great taste. If there are any outstanding young talents, introduce them to us too. I looked around at the people surrounding me. It was the same group of people who had talked about Tig behind my back that year. I didn't want to have too much interaction with them, so I just smiled and nodded a few times. Josie and Naya. As I was about to leave the school gate, someone suddenly called my name. It was Cassidy. She was wearing a black uniform skirt and walking quickly towards me. Her tone was a bit harsh as she spoke. I owe you an apology for trying to set you up with my cousin for some small benefits before. I pursed my lips and replied, no need to apologize to me. Wait. Cassidy grabbed my hand and said, Josie, I was also forced to do it. After hearing those words, I lost consciousness. When I woke up, I found myself lying on a bed. The mattress was soft. The room was spacious, and the floor-to-ceiling window was filled with roses. This was the villa I had lived in for 10 years. My brain was momentarily confused, and I couldn't distinguish between the events of these two worlds. Could it be that I hadn't died? Was I still in the villa, and everything was just a dream? Just as I was lost in thought, the door to the room was pushed open. Schuler Malloy walked in. "Are you awake?" I instinctively tried to get up, but I found that I couldn't move at all. "Don't struggle. You can't move," he said. I thought of Cassidy before I passed out and said, "It was you?" "Schuler, do you know that it's illegal to restrict someone's freedom?" After I finished speaking, Schuler burst into laughter as if he had heard a joke. He suddenly burst out laughing. "Restricting freedom? Josie, you were originally mine." He walked towards me, his eyes filled with a paranoid madness. "Don't you know that we have always been together, living here?" At that moment, I finally understood the reason. No matter how carefully I avoided him, I couldn't escape Schuler. It turned out that he had been reborn as well. I completely calmed down. "We were originally together? Schuler, every day I spent with you felt like an eternity, and I would rather die than live. If you hadn't threatened me with my parents, there's no way I would have lived here with you." Upon hearing my words, he looked shocked. "You?" "That's right, I also have memories from before," I said, looking at Schuler. "So in this lifetime, I won't give you any chance to hurt me again." "How could I bear to hurt you?" "No, Josie, you love me. We've been together for 10 years. I was wrong, I shouldn't have left you alone in the villa, otherwise you wouldn't have." He didn't finish his sentence, but I knew what he wanted to say. "Otherwise, I wouldn't have died either." Upon hearing this, I wanted to laugh. "Schuler, don't you understand? After my parents died, I stayed by your side because I wanted to gather evidence and seek revenge for them. I want to see you go to jail with my own eyes. Otherwise, how could I rest in peace? Don't you want to know why your company's secrets were leaked? Why the police found out about all the dirty things you did? It was all because of me. My goal is to make you pay for your sins with your own blood." "Enough. Not enough." I decided to say everything at once. "After you go to jail, I was the one who set the fire. I want you to lose everything, including everything he had touched. Including me. Why, I love you so much." In my previous life, I rejected Schuler's pursuit. He deceived my father and borrowed money at high interest rates, then forced me to be with him. My father didn't want me to suffer, so he voluntarily turned himself in. My mother, in a fit of anger, had a breakdown and her health deteriorated. Schuler cut off her medical resources and used this to threaten me into moving into his villa. I looked at Schuler and sneered. "Love? Are you even qualified to talk about that word?" After saying that, I stood up from the bed. Schuler was dumbfounded. "How did you? How could I move?" I asked, looking at him expressionlessly. "In my previous life, you drugged me and took advantage of me. How could I make the same mistake twice?" With that, I made a gesture towards the outside. Undercover police officers burst into the room. Schuler was completely frantic, still trying to reason with me. "Josie, let's forget everything and start over, okay? I don't care about what you've done, I forgive you." I saw Tig slowly appear at the door. I hurried over to Tig. As I passed by Schuler, I whispered, "But I don't forgive you." Schuler was taken away. I felt weak and collapsed into Tig's arms. "Honey, don't you have any questions for me?" I asked Tig. Tig shook his head. "It's all in the past." Yes, it was all in the past. All the right and wrong had nothing to do with me. From now on, I was just Tig's wife. "When you have time, will you accompany me to visit my parents?" Tig smiled and replied, "Of course." From the first day of my rebirth, I found an excuse to make my parents leave the city of B. They returned to their hometown in the countryside. They retired early and lived a comfortable life. They have no knowledge of my marriage to Tig, and I didn't dare to tell them. During the new year, Tig brought a lot of gifts to my parents' house to celebrate the new year. In March of the same year, we finally held our wedding. I have lived 2 lifetimes, but it was the first time I wore a wedding dress. Tig's parents passed away when he was young, and he had no relatives. Only my parents attended the wedding from both sides. When the groom bowed and offered tea, I clearly saw tears in his eyes when he called them Dad and Mom. Somehow, I suddenly thought of my past life. When I died, Tig was already close to 40 years old, but he was alone. I never heard any gossip about him. He seemed content and not like an ordinary person. If you didn't marry me, what kind of wife would you have found? I couldn't help but ask Tig that night. I don't know, he pondered for a moment. I probably wouldn't have looked for one. I've gotten used to being alone. Then why did you agree to my proposal back then? In response to my question, Tig seemed to be reminiscing. A smile curved his lips as he said, I just thought it would be nice to have one more person. Especially such a beautiful wife. I widened my eyes and asked, so, you were attracted to me because of my looks? Probably not. After all, you also had a bank card, Tig chuckled. I was attracted to your money too. Seeing me pout, Tig kissed my forehead. Thank you, my wife, for giving me a home. No. It should be me thanking Tig. Living 2 lifetimes, I have truly encountered love.